Hi guys, today we're going to make the Raelyn Romper and Peplum from Retro Sparkle Designs. Come along and sew with me. Every seam is going to have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and my hems are going to be about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And this pattern goes from size newborn all the way up to a size 16 in youth. So to start off with the peplum, we're going to need 2 main fronts, 2 lining fronts, 1 back in the main, 1 back in liner, 2 sleeves, 1 front. It has that pointy top, the front skirt, and the back skirt has a straight top. If you are making the bubble, you're gonna have almost everything except the bottom front and bottom back look different. Note the front still has that pointy top. This is also showing bishop sleeves and cuffs, and then you'll need snaps, 2 snap plackets, 2 leg bands, and some interfacing. Next, I'm going to show you how I cut out my pieces. I use a projector for mine. Of note, the grain line goes opposite the stretch. So that's my grain line and that's my stretch. Stretch will be from left to right. Grain line will normally be up and down, just depending on the way your pieces need to stretch. So here I'm going to just show you how I cut out my pieces. I generally fold and cut. As you can see, some of these pieces are cut on a fold, and then my bodice pieces were actually cut mirrored. So just follow the directions on your pattern pieces. This is sped up quite a bit. It probably took me about 5 minutes to cut these out. Now we're ready to get started. I'm going to go ahead and first take my 2 front pieces and put them right sides together with my back piece, lining up the shoulders at the top. Notice my 2 pointy pieces are facing inward right there. Those are going to be my front points. I'm going to go ahead and clip along each shoulder. And once I've done that, I will take it to my machine and sew the shoulders. I'm also going to go ahead and do the same thing for my lining pieces. I'm taking my 2 front lining pieces and putting them right sides together with my back piece, lining up the shoulder, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew the shoulders of my lining piece as well. The shoulders of my main and my liners. I am using a 3/8 inch seam allowance for all seams on this pattern. Just line things up, go slow. Once we've done that, we're going to take it back to our table. Open up your main piece and lay it flat, and then go ahead and take your lining piece and lay it flat on top of your main piece. We're going to make sure we have lined up our shoulder seams with each other. Here I am lining up those shoulder seams, match everything up, and we're going to clip around the neckline only of our top. So I'm clipping those front points and just kind of lining everything up. Once you have it exactly how you want it, you're going to go ahead and take it to your machine, and we're going to sew around the neck. Here I am at my machine. I'm sewing around my edges of my neck. Make sure you hold those 2 shoulder seams together as you go. I like to pull things straight as I go around so I don't miss anything. And there we go. We've got our neck sewn. Taking it back to the table, you can see I've sewn around my neck edge. I did not sew that bottom yet. Flip it right side out, so you're just going to flip your main over onto your liner. So wrong sides will be touching now, right sides will be out for both. Just kind of lining things up here, and now we are ready to work on our sleeves. I've gathered the top of my bishop sleeves. I'm finding the middle point and lining it up with my shoulder seam. So my sleeve is now face down on top of the main part. Doing the same for the other side, finding the center, lining up that sleeve along the arm opening, and then we serge them on. Here is what that looks like. Now for bishop sleeves, you're also going to need to gather that bottom edge. Here it is gathered. And then I'm going to show you two different ways to do the cuffs. One way is to add your cuff flat, like I'm doing right now. So fold that cuff in half, wrong sides together, place it along your gathered edge, clip it, and then you're going to sew it on. This is what that looks like. Next, I would go ahead and flip my bodice down on top of itself, and I would sew that sleeve. But I'm also going to show you how to do it in the round. So if we weren't going to do it in the round, I would go ahead and fold both my sleeves over on top of each other and my bodice on top of itself, lining up that underarm seam and the side seams. When you sew the side of your bodice, make sure you catch all 4 layers, both main pieces and lining pieces, like that. We're going to do this with both sides. We're just pretending that we haven't added our cuffs yet. So like that right side I'm doing right now, this is how it would look if I'm going to add my cuffs in the round. So I'm folding my sleeve and the bodice on top of itself, and we're going to... So if I'm sewing my cuff flat, this is how I close that cuff. I start sewing towards my finished edge, lift my foot, flip it over, put it back under the foot, and then just continue sewing along. That will make sure that my cuff edges are nice and secure. It's kind of like a back stitch onto itself. That's only if you added your cuff knot in the round. As you can see, it's nice and secure. The other side, we're going to just do a cuff in the round. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew down the side of my sleeve and the side of my bodice. Taking it back to our table, then we're going to prepare our other cuff. So fold it in half widthwise, and then go ahead and sew down that side. Once I've done that, I'm going to fold my cuff onto itself, putting the wrong sides together, flipping it so the right sides are out into a band. And then I'm going to take that cuff and slip it inside of my sleeve. Notice my bodice is still right sides or inside out, so I'm slipping my cuff into the sleeve. I'm going to line it up along that gathered edge, and then I'm going to attach it in the round. So basically I'm just going to sew in a circle to attach my cuff, like so. It's easier to do this on baby sizes. It's easier to do the flat cuff, but again, it is your preference. This is a size newborn, so it was a lot easier to attach the sleeve flat, but both options work just fine. And that's what my bishop sleeves will look like. Next, I'm going to go ahead and line up those 2 front points and cross them where the notches were. Here is if I had just done a short sleeve. So with the short sleeve, you're basically just going to flip your top onto itself, sew down that short sleeve side and the bodice side. So now no matter what option you choose, you should have a closed bodice. We're going to overlap those 2 front points by about 1 inch. There were notches on your pattern that you marked when you cut it out. Use those 2 notches. And then I like to do a little basting serge stitch just to keep it secure, like so. It just makes it a lot easier for me when I attach it. So now we're going to work on our peplum. We're going to take our front skirt. It has that pointy piece at the top. I'm going to mark it with a clip because when we gather that, we don't want to lose our front piece. Put your back skirt right sides on top of your front skirt, line up the sides, and then basically all you're going to do is sew down the sides of each. Next, we're going to gather the top edge of our skirt. Do not gather that front top piece. Now I'm going to show you my gathering settings. So I turn my needles to about a 6 or a 7. The higher you go, the tighter it will be. I leave my tensions at about 4. Turn up your differential to a 2. This will be in a different location on different sergers. And your stitch length, you're going to want to turn it to a 4. And then make sure that your width is as small as possible. Next, starting at my clip, I'm going to go ahead and just sew along that top edge. As you can see, it is gathering on its own. It doesn't need to be a super tight gather for the bodice. So 6s worked really well on my needle tension, but if it is not gathered enough, you can play with your machine. Here we go with our gathered skirt. So take that front crossed piece and line it up with that pointy spot. We're putting it inside of our skirt, which is right sides inside. So we're lining up basically our right sides. So our skirt is inside out. We're lining up the edges of our bodice and we're going to sew around in a circle to attach. When I attach my gathers, I like to make sure that that piece is lined up in the front. I start right there so it comes to a little bit of a point. And then make sure you have reset your serger settings back to what they were before. And then I use my widest stitch so I can cover my gathers. I like to have my gathers on top of my fabric so I can see that everything is lined up and getting covered. And just go around in a circle until you get back to your front piece. It should come off in a little bit. So next, all we need to do is hem. So I'm going to fold under the bottom edge of my skirt about a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew around using a cover stitch, a double needle, or a zigzag on my regular machine. Same thing with your sleeves, fold under about a 1/2 inch and sew around in a circle to hem. That is it for the peplum. Next I'm going to show you how to do the bubble. So for the bubble, we needed the sleeves, all the bodice pieces like we had before. I'm not going to go over those because we already did the bodice. We need a front bottom piece, a back bottom piece, 2 leg bands, snaps. I like to use size 16 cam snaps, 2 interfacing pieces, and 2 snap plackets. So basically we're going to keep that front point just like with the peplum clipped. Take your back bottom piece and put it on top of your front bottom piece. We're going to line up the sides just like we did with our peplum skirt, and we're going to sew down each side. Once we've done that, we're going to gather the top of our bubble again just like we did, and we're also going to gather the leg openings for the bottom of the bubble on both sides. That's what that will look like. Next, we're going to go ahead and attach our leg bands. Your gather on your bubbles are going to need to be a little tight to make those leg bands fit. So take your leg band, fold it in half, wrong sides together, and clip that raw edge along the gathered edge of each leg piece. I like to find the center point of my band and line it up with the side seam, and then kind of stretch it as you attach. This is what it looks like now that we've attached our leg bands, and we're going to work on our snap placket. So I have some interfacing. It is recommended to help keep those snaps more stable. Go ahead and put the interfacing on the wrong side of your snap placket. Fold your snap placket in half lengthwise. And then you're going to want to clip the sides of each snap placket. We're going to sew just the sides of each. That we've done that, we're going to open up our snap placket. Both sides will be finished. And then we're going to line up the raw edge of the snap placket with the raw edge of each crotch piece. Clip it in place, making sure everything is matched up, and then you're going to go ahead and serge it on. I used my back stitch trick to make sure that it was secure. You can also top stitch that seam down if you like. that is completely optional. And now we're ready to add our snaps. So I just marked each side and in the middle where I wanted my snaps to be. And then I use open ring metal snaps from Cam Snap, size 16. You can also do plastic. I just prefer these. I have a snap press, but a lot of snap kits come with a hand tool. Snaps look like that. That's my open ring. I like to put my male snaps on the front placket. Basically, my open ring goes on the outer part of that front snap placket, and then my male snaps will kind of be on the inside. That way, when it is snapped, it will overlap the back. Here I am putting my male snaps on. Every tool works differently, so just go ahead and read the instructions on your machine. The hand press is really neat. It makes things go pretty quick. Now I'm adding the rest of my snaps. I sped this up a little bit. The whole process just took a few minutes. Those are my male snaps, and then on my female snaps, I put them on the right side of the snap placket on the back placket so that when it overlaps, they snap nice and flat. I'll show you here in a second what that looks like. There we go. So here is our bubble romper. That is what my snaps looked like finished. The front overlaps the back a little bit. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much, and follow for more.